Welcome to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. On this episode, I spoke with Dan Bortz, a good friend of mine, fine artist, and also the owner of Time Change Generator, a clothing brand based out of Cleveland, Ohio. Hope you enjoy.
Hello?
Yeah, dude.
Hey, what's up, Michael?
How you been?
Doing pretty good. How you doing, man?
I'm well. I can't complain at all. Where am I? Where are we?
Where are we? We're in my studio in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
Kind of sitting here painting while I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I saw that. You're back on the paintings.
Yeah, I've been kind of like always really quietly painting. And not really focusing on it as my whole career, you know, but kind of always making paintings. And for the last couple of years, like pretty much at the beginning of the pandemic, I had this like week where I started 10 or 15 little paintings and then kind of just haven't finished them and have been tinkering around and starting more and more paintings for like 2 years. And so I'm slowly finishing one at a time and kind of like thinking about what I want to do with them.
Right. There's no particular purpose to them. It's not for a show or anything like that.
Yeah, not right now. I mean, it feels really good to do that because I think before I was sort of like floundering for, you know, potential shows or whatever. But ever since I've been making clothing, I don't really need to think about it in that way. Although it would be nice to maybe just like shift gears and do that again. But yeah,
So the clothing is financially sustainable.
It depends. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, what people say is it takes like 5 years to start a business and then actually make money off of it.
Yeah.
Is that what they say? That's what
That's what they say, 3 to 5. I think you should not expect profit for 3 to 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's like little moments where I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm doing really good. And
it's an illusion.
It's an illusion. And then it's like I get a little bigger and then I like invest more and then it just kind of evens out to the point where it's just like never like really profiting, but definitely sustaining and then getting like my abilities to explore more things is getting bigger the more, you know, those numbers get bigger where it's like my production minimums and stuff are like I can meet that more easily. And
yeah,
I'm just able to like with our process in here, I'm able to like explore a lot of different things, experiment a lot. And then you know, if we make like long sleeve t-shirts, I'll make like, you know, five different prints where I'm fucking around with a lot of different things. And then, you know, there's like 10 of each.
Yeah. I mean, self-employment often amounts to self-improvement, but not a lot of income. That's kind of what I see is like, and that's why it's great if you're interested in self-improvement. If you're interested in money, I think being employed is a better approach.
Yeah.
But yeah. I see what you mean, where it's like, yeah, you might make that money. It goes right back into the business. You probably see the same profit each year, but your abilities get bigger and bigger Yeah, it's tricky. It's a worthwhile journey that I think is more interested than being a solitary artist. I assume you employ people as well, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most rewarding part of what I'm doing, is that it actually breaks me out of isolation a bit and makes me like have to work with people. And then, yeah, the more like new stuff I experiment with, I have to like step way outside of my comfort zone of like, you know, dealing with the only other artists and weirdos. Like I have to like put on my I have to put on my like business hat, like
Human flesh.
my human, yeah.
Yeah, it's what most people have to do every day, all the time, is be a reasonable person.
Totally, yeah. Being like, be a reasonable person, which I'm definitely working on that. Like,
you always struck me as fairly pragmatic. Like,
oh, that is so nice to hear. Holy shit.
Well, I haven't seen you in a while, so no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, you didn't strike me as a space cadet. Although, like, maybe people might see the work and say this dude's far out, but
yeah,
you seem pretty down to earth as a personality to me.
Thank you, sir.
Hey,
yeah,
no problem.
Working on it.
What are you throwing this phone around everywhere? What's going on?
Working on a little painting that I've thrown around, actually. Yeah.
Do you feel any shame about being more of a practical artist than a fine artist?
Yeah.
By practical, I mean like someone who runs a business, someone who creates something that can be used on the daily, i.e. clothing.
Yeah, like a lot.
You do feel shame?
Not like real shame, but actually, yeah, I think I entered into a conversation kind of recently with some friends that are all fine artists, that are all like, some of them doing like really well in the fine art world, and kind of talking about we were sort of just talking about the boundaries of like design and fine art. It was because we were all down in Miami for Basel, and it was the discussion of like having work at the Design Miami show, and like if that somehow like changes the narrative of your work, or cheapens the narrative of your work if it's then in that realm of design. But it's not really. Cheapen is more of maybe that's a really negative word to use for it, but it just changes how you can talk about your work when you put it in the realm of design or consumer goods instead of just fine art, which can literally, you can be talking about any issue, and the piece doesn't have to be like utilitarian in some way. It's not decorative. It's like simply making a piece of art to talk about an issue or to like conceptualize something, whereas design is like there's utility to it. I don't know, we basically, yes, to answer that question though, I feel like I straddle those two worlds where I'm like, I really miss making art where I'm just making whatever the hell I want to make, to talk about like how I'm feeling, or to talk about something bigger outside of, to talk about something abstract, instead of like trying to make clothing that speaks to the masses. I mean,
well, I don't think you're doing that per se.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not doing that. Like, and I'm trying to do that more, but like speaking to the masses is like pretty far outside of my wheelhouse. It's like I can kind of reach like whatever demographic fucks with me, like, and I don't know how much further I can go than that.
Yeah, well, What is that demographic? Is it our generation?
Yeah, it seems to be our generation. It seems to just be like other artists. You know?
That's a horrible market.
I know. It's like a bunch of people that are like struggling to just make enough money to like have a studio and live a chill life. So I don't know. It's been interesting. I mean, it's like growing and changing, and I'm always surprised by like who buys my clothing. But I guess my target demographic is like other creatives, and then
people who want to look like creative people. How about that?
Yeah,
that's the best market, by the way.
Yeah.
Usually have a lot of money.
That's true. We love y'all,
and yeah, we really do,
for sure. Or it's like you're creative in some realm that does not materialize into clothing, so you have to buy clothing from somebody who does do that. Or you like whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't materialize into like something identifiable. So then you're
well, yeah. There's certainly a market for, or there's a commodification of looking like you make art. That's undeniable in our generation.
Yeah.
And maybe there always has been that, but it seems to be more prevalent in respect to like the craft distinction, the design, the fine art distinction. That history is so wild and so long. There's certainly like a class component. There's a luxury aspect to being able to make things that don't have utility.
Yeah.
There is obviously the liberating component of, you might say, frivolous self-expression that fine art allows for, and non-frivolous.
Yeah.
You know, I found at a certain point that I always thought I was going to be kind of inexhaustibly interested in my own self-expression, but it's at a certain stage in my 20s, it just became rather uninteresting.
You were like, oh, this is just masturbatory. Like, I need to.
I wouldn't say that far, but like, how interesting is like usually a vibrant party or group of people or like small scale community is more interesting than just one individual in respect to what they're going to cook up and the different viewpoints, etc. So
I like that. Yeah,
I'm just a person, and I'm not like fetishizing community. I that word gets thrown around so flippantly. And it's like it often doesn't deal with the hard part of community, which is a lot of it. And but go on.
Yeah, no, I mean that's been kind of my vision with my whole print studio. Has been, especially being in a city that kind of needs more. Well, I'm trying to backtrack here and say this differently. I moved here to potentially do something that's not already being done here, Cleveland, Ohio. Where I could potentially work with artists from all over the world and sort of like introduce them to the scene here, or potentially, I thought about running a gallery here at a certain point, but I think
don't do that.
But I've quickly moved away from that idea. I mean, I've quickly moved away from a lot of ideas I've had because I'm finding that straying away from just straight up being an artist in itself has just been difficult for me. So it's almost like the further I go down the clothing route and the design route, there's been more demand from people who've previously collected my paintings. So I've actually been selling paintings like just out of the studio.
There's a synergistic nature to it. Now, having run a gallery, I'm also not naive to the fact that like the most commodifiable individual is the one who's easily identifiable as a thing. And by that, I mean, we want to know you're going to keep making paintings when we pay 10 G's for this. In other words, in 10 years, I hope you're still making these because, there's there's a lot more value to an artist who makes paintings for 40, 50 years and that's their career than an illustrator who picks up a paintbrush and maybe makes a better painting than said painter. But the narrative is not in alignment. It's not about the object per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of other things matter. And I completely get it, having thought about it, having been kind of disappointed by what I thought were trying to sell great paintings by great illustrators, but realizing like, they're kind of in a different game, and their skin is in a different game.
Mm-hmm.
And collectors know that,
Yeah. I feel like I've always been pretty confused about which category I fall into. I certainly I've worn many hats professionally. As far as like design, illustrator, painter, I've kind of like hopped around all those things and never jumped too far into one thing or the other.
Yeah, I understand that completely.
Yeah.
I mean, some people work in this kind of synergistic, multi-disciplinarian way. Now, it's tricky. It's kind of harder to commodify because you got your attention spread out. And but it also yields some very interesting chimeras that wouldn't normally emerge, So you make clothing like a printmaker or like an illustrator,
Right.
And ultimately, I think sometimes we have to sacrifice some aspect of ourselves, some quirk, to build a financially viable life.
Yeah.
And I have ambivalence about that. That's kind of complicated, but it's also asking a lot to be like, look at me and all my strange weirdness and pay me,
Well, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I go back and forth between that because sometimes the weirdest shit that I make, even in the clothing realm, that, it's sometimes that's what does the best. And where I try to get more normal or make things that are more just like easily wearable, for like the everyday person who kind of just wants to represent my brand and maybe not stand out too much. That stuff doesn't sell as well. So it's been, excuse me, I'm still getting over COVID, so I have a lot of phlegm in my throat, but
it's all good. It makes it better.
It's been pretty wild because, I wanted to make something that was more involving other makers and kind of like collaborative and turning into like, I want my clothing brand to turn into more of like a collective studio where we're all making different, we have a bunch of people who contribute creatively, either in Cleveland or like nationally or internationally, just people like designing stuff and make it and give them a cut. And it's kind of like just like a nice little thing for creatives to plug into if they want to make clothes. That was the idea at first, but as I go on, I see that my audience mostly wants like the stuff that I design. So it's not necessarily just selling the name, and it's been complicated, and there's been a lot of really, really hard things to learn, and I'm not giving up yet. So,
you plan on giving up at some point?
No, I mean, I have to be kind to myself, it's like, it's been really brutal, like physically and stress wise, as far as, like I am not studied in the fashion world whatsoever, nor am I somebody who, really knows how to run a business. And
sure.
A lot of those things are kind of far outside of my, like, what's the word?
Natural disposition.
Yeah.
Right.
I do not have a natural disposition for like organization or keeping my books or like,
yeah. Well, that's where that's the beauty of building a team is you learn, well, I'm not an accountant, so I hire an accountant. And that's just trust. And I don't know. I actually like that kind of aspect of building a business where you say, first of all, you should never build a business with someone who's too similar to you in terms of skill set and personality, because it's just redundant, So I've made that mistake earlier at times. It's like, maybe it's easier to get along in some sense for common interest's sake, but it's building a relationship in the wrong way. And it's foregoing the actual difficult parts, which is, you're different. And that's the point, that you're bringing different skills and strengths.
Yeah, you're covering different bases. I mean, I think even that being said, it's like trying to work with people that are all your friends.
Oof.
Has a lot of problems.
That's tough, Yeah. I work with family and friends. I like intimacy in that setting. Yeah. But I think you have to have revealed certain aspects of your personality to them earlier. Like if they know you to be kind of neurotic about certain details or an asshole at times, then that comes easier. But if you've been suppressing some key aspects and then they come out in the business version of yourself, this is bad. This is very dangerous.
That's some pretty sound advice right there. Definitely.
So be more openly an asshole. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm trying to, it's like overall, I think the goal here of what I'm even trying to do in the first place is pretty far from being an asshole. So if I have to be an asshole to get it to actually happen, then whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like you can't push somebody to like work as hard as you do.
No. You can't expect the same anything. You can't project, any component of yourself onto the world without it kind of whipping back at you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been actually a really humbling reminder for me to like slow the fuck down and just like be a little more methodical about my approach to stuff. Not that I've quite listened to that. I'm starting to listen to it more, but like I've made a lot of really rash decisions, with like, you kind of have to keep up with clothing. It's just clothing is so rapid. It's like, oh, fucking, God damn it, it's cold already. I gotta have
right. Like, do you have seasons, or do you have?
And that's the thing. Also, seasons. That shit is just out now. It's just kind of like, just with the way that Instagram works and the way that people shop, it's kind of not seasons. It's just all the time stuff.
It's horrible.
All the time. And I think the beauty of it is that you're kind of untethered to like one thing or the other, and you can sort of just always be working on everything. So it's like through making clothing at this point, for the last couple of years, I've been developing a catalog of different silhouettes. Like,
you got the jargon. If you picked up silhouettes,
yep. So
you're halfway there
now. Yeah, I'm halfway to actually having gone to school for fashion.
Yeah.
I'm just paying. I'm like paying to just learn through. I'm just learning through doing, basically. And you design a piece, you make 1 million samples of it, you think it's good, you put it into production, and then you have like your entire following giving you feedback as to like what works and what doesn't. And it's just infinite. It's like pretty impossible to nail down. But I don't know. I feel like I'm just complaining. I'm just spending my time complaining right now. It's been like totally incredible.
No, I don't think you're complaining.
Cool. Yeah, it's been like giving me a really incredible understanding of the world. And
of the real world. I mean, not to discredit the unreal world, because there's explorations worth undergoing there as well. But if you're gonna run a business, that's what you're exploring. And
totally,
it can only be humbling. And when working with physical objects, I feel like, there's no undo button. There's no, there's none of that. Yeah.
There's infinite waste.
Oh, there's so much waste.
Yeah, I actually save every little scrap. Every scrap from our production runs, I save. And we do these little scrap parties where I invite as many sewers as I can get phone numbers of, like people that have a sewing machine and know what they're doing locally. And I say, like, come by between like these dates, 1 to 5, whatever. We're just having a collage party with material, and we just I basically am paying people per square. It's like an 18-inch by 18-inch square.
It's a good idea.
And we kind of just, you can come and get as much done as you want, or you could hang out and talk and drink coffee and like sew 2 squares. But at the end of the day, we're just sewing and making stuff, making these squares out of our scrap. And then I'm taking the scrap and potentially making clothing out of it. We got these throw pillows that we make out of it.
Nice.
It's just super fun. And that's the part of this practice that has been really rewarding, is just like connecting with tons of different people. And even if I'm not really profiting, I feel like I'm, the bigger this thing gets, I'm able to maybe generate income for other people and an outlet creatively that maybe, can spark something. But, yeah.
When you were a child, did you think you would be where you are now?
No, I thought I was going to be like a kind of like Zach De La Rocha of Rage Against the Machine. Like, I thought I was going to be like Jonathan Davis, Zach De La Rocha.
Okay.
Like, I thought I was going to be the front man of a nu metal band. With crazy, like with hair like the Static X dude, like straight spiked completely up.
This is a vivid vision you had.
Yeah, because I spent, like, when I was a kid, I was designing. My favorite thing was designing bands. I would basically design a whole band. It would be like, I came up with a name for a band. I drew all the people in the band like a video game character, with like the stats and like what their favorite food is and shit.
How strange.
And then I would make, I would make all these designs for the band. And my room was just covered in like these printouts of whatever the band was that week that I was making. And then I had cutouts of different rock stars and shit all over my walls.
Do you still have these pages? These fake.
Actually,
you should make a run of clothing that's just these fake bands. That'd be sick.
Yeah, there was a band called Advisory.
Of course.
That was
it
sick.
spelled correctly or weird?
I think it had a Z.
Right.
It was banging. But at that point, you would just go on MS Paint or Microsoft Word, and there was like all that super sick word art that you could play with.
Right. So that got you into graffiti?
More or less. I don't know. Actually, graffiti came about because I was also super into hip hop from the age of like 11.
Mm-hmm.
And my babysitter, this dude that grew up down the street from me, who was like, I don't know, I think he's about 7 or 8 years older than me. him and some other dudes in the neighborhood were like starting to get into graffiti in the late 90s and skateboarding and stuff. And he was my babysitter. And how did that happen? I was friends with his little brother. His little brother got into graffiti. So we all sort of started to like emulate the older kids and get into graffiti. And that
you also have an older brother, right?
I have an older brother, but he wasn't really involved in that, but he got super into hip hop. A little later on, he got really, really into hip hop and was like, for his bar mitzvah, he took his money and bought, well, you know, when you have a bar mitzvah, everybody donates $20 to $100. You have a big bar mitzvah party, which, you know, where I grew up, it was like 80% Jewish.
Where was that again?
Like between Cleveland Heights and Beechwood, Ohio.
I didn't know there's a lot of Jewish people in Ohio.
In Cleveland specifically, there's like between Cleveland Heights and Beechwood, I think there's more Jews per capita, or as many Jews per capita, like as Israel.
Interesting.
Not to bring up a super politically charged word in this podcast.
You just said a place.
I just said Israel.
It's not a big deal. I feel like where I'm from in New Jersey, that there's also a high density of Jewish people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I thought like Jewish people were everywhere.
No.
And then it was like, no, actually.
I learned that pretty quickly. Like when I moved to California and lived in Oakland, which it's not like there's no Jews in Oakland, but I don't know. When I was in art school, it was like, I think there were plenty of Jews at art school, but it's just, I met a lot of people that hadn't known any other.
Yeah. Jews. I mean, we're talking like community, you know, like pockets, like full on community. But I mean, so your vision, so have you made clothing for musicians?
Yeah, I've actually had a lot of, that's been that's been my main clientele, I would say. It's been like designing album covers, t-shirt graphics, flyers, all sorts of stuff for musicians over the years, be it like locally or way bigger. And so
you're damn near living your dream.
Yeah, basically.
You know, it's that clear in the like. I don't know. It makes sense to me that, you know, you don't make the kind of work or the kind of person where it's going to make sense that like you want to be in the museum, like the Guggenheim or something. Like even though museums want to be cool now, you know, and like we can't avoid this. Like I like Ninja Turtles and comic books, and you know, like you go to art school, you study things that might interest you and say, oh, that's cool. But you mistake in liking something for wanting to be something sometimes. And then you look back at what you actually are, stripped of all the pretense of high school and college. And it's like, that's pretty much what you got to work with right there. You know?
Yeah. Coming to terms with that slowly, dude. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was obsessed with Ninja Turtles growing up. There used to be this Ninja Turtles museum, or the guys who started the illustrators.
Yeah, Laird and Eastman.
There was this, it was a comic museum in downtown Northampton. Or rather just Northampton. It's a little town. And it was just a super cool building. I think it was like 5 stories. And I just have this really vivid memory of this one illustration, or it's like a small painting on paper of like somebody shaving their legs and cutting their legs, and there's blood going down their legs. It's all these like little drip drops of,
that sounds like it. Yeah, I can see that. You like to draw like hair, like big pieces of hair coming off of legs.
Yeah.
There's
also there's like this gallery there that had like the whole Dr. Seuss collection, or had a collection of Dr. Seuss like sculptural busts and paintings and stuff. I forget what his association was with that region, but yeah, Western Massachusetts, super cool place. Really fucking love it there. Yeah, that the idea that that's kind of like, I feel like you and me are maybe sort of cut from the same cloth there, where it's like a little bit like outside of this fine art realm, and
well,
there's nothing that you can really do about that. You're just sort of, that's just sort of who you are.
Yeah, of course, what's accepted in museums has changed over time. So like more lowbrow things make their way into museums. But
yeah,
you know, for me, even the accessibility of cartoons and books is what kind of stuck with me. Besides the aesthetic of the thing, it seemed to me that it was just cool that anyone could get to it, or that you could sell a comic book to your friend who's a comic book artist for $5 and vice versa. I like that tightness, kind of what you were talking about earlier. Now there's ceilings there.
Yeah.
And actually it makes me think of how John Frusciante once talked about, because I do like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I'm going to put that out there.
I can't really front on that. Yeah.
Specifically, I like John Frusciante. But
wait, which one is he?
He's like the guitarist who just leaves the band randomly, then comes back. Under the Bridge, he's like in the... He's
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he replaced the guy who died, sadly, early on. Yeah. But when he did, he was like a super fan, before he was in the band.
Yeah.
And then he jumped in when they were becoming famous and kind of made the assessment that shit was going downhill because their audience was changing, in the sense that they weren't of the same, I don't know what you would say, like, well, in some sense they were spectators, not participants. They weren't of the scene. Mm-hmm. It started to reach that threshold where they were playing to a different crowd, and he despised that. Now, there's certainly limitations to that way of thinking. It can certainly skew towards elitism.
Definitely. Yeah, I think.
But I also get it. I also completely get it.
Yeah, with music, that's strictly age. It's like you might be the now band, and then as time goes on, it's just like, and I think about this with visual art as well, and especially with clothing and just aesthetics in general, that, oh man, I was just thinking about that right now with like Gen X stuff. I mean, I'm super into like 90s alternative rock,
mm-hmm.
because I got really into music when I was really young. I think I was like 8 or 9, like saving up money to buy a CD, to buy like Smashing Pumpkins, when I was like a child. But yeah, I was just thinking about certain aesthetics within the art world, or not even the art world, like the lowbrow world or whatever, like Guy Fieri aesthetics that kind of just don't go away somehow. And like, I was just thinking about artists that are sort of in that realm, and it's like, they're like still getting work and kind of doing their thing somehow because like their generation supports them.
Yeah. And I don't know what's more noble, trying to like constantly be up on trends when you're 50 years old as an artist, or accepting that you age and that you shouldn't be cool for the majority of your life.
Yeah.
To me, that's noble.
I think back to what we were talking about with like kind of like not being potentially this lowbrow thing, taking you out of the world of out of the like fine art world. I think that really has to do with not following trends and like not I think what would kind of separate you from that, and maybe still your work remains sort of interesting outside of this like trend, is just like being really true to yourself and like not following any kind of trend.
Well, something changed when fashion and art were married. I don't know the exact period, but fashion is by definition what's fashionable.
Yeah.
And art became, especially in New York, embedded with that LA as well. And art is very much in that kind of vein now, where it is about trend chasing. It is about the certain universities giving out MFAs, knowing what's cool now, what's hot now, and pipelining that. So I don't know. More and more I think about it, there's something cool about doing your thing and potentially being completely, just irrelevant in your lifetime. And I think that was pretty common in the past. Now we have social media, so it's different. But it's like showing up to a punk show when you're 50 with tight jeans on. If you're constantly just chasing these trends, even when you're 50, and changing your style to match this or that.
Yeah, I think
it's kind of weak. I think
the day comes though for that punk, that 50-year-old punk in his tight jeans. The day will come where some like newcomer, some young punk kid comes up to him and goes, "Holy shit, dude! I saw, like, you're a legend.
Yeah,
I saw you in a video of blah 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 from the 70s. You're a legend, dude." And I think that's far cooler than that's like the coolest thing.
I don't think I'm suggesting that there's far more cool things occurring outside of wherever that punk venue is. That this 50-year-old with the hypothetical pants that are too tight should there are phases to life, and there is this perpetual child thing that's happening to our generation. And it's so unfathomable for most people because their lives were riddled with real problems and real structure. And by structure, I mean almost a mythological one where it's like, you are a child, then you are a teenager, then you're an adult. And that means certain things. And each phase felt different. And each phase had different problems and different priorities. Mm-hmm. Even for us, like for me, that's true of my 20s and 30s. My 20s were far more egocentric and interested in self-expression and a kind of poetic sense of being lost in California. And then my late 20s and 30s is very different. And I don't want this to persist either. I don't want to be 70 and thinking about the same things or worried about the same things or working on the same things.
Yeah. I would like to, basically my vision as far as my clothing brand goes is that I can get, or no, I wouldn't, I have a hard time even calling it a clothing brand because it's really, I want it to be a creative studio, a print studio that, it's like you're buying merch for the studio. If you buy a hat that says Time Change Generator on it, it's like you're buying merchandise to represent the studio. You're not like representing just a clothing brand. It's like it's supposed to be about more than that. So, we put out editions of clothing items. That's sort of how I'm thinking about it.
Sometimes it's harder to find things that are a little more unique, but you have to for commercial reasons. I struggle with the fabrication company I run with my partner. It's like, man, it's really hard to even explain to you in under a minute what we're doing. And that's a good and a bad thing.
Yeah. The only way I'm able to explain things to people under a minute is using a bunch of language that most people are like, I don't know what the fuck you just said, basically. Like, hey, I screen print textile. I screen print repeat patterns on textiles. Like we print yardage. People are like, what the fuck is yardage? What's a repeat pattern? They're like, oh, all over print clothing, like Bape or something. Like it's pretty difficult to explain for the most part. And also it's hard to explain that we're an artist studio and not like a commercial print shop that's for hire. And, I've had some pretty big collaborations recently where galleries or like larger entities will like commission a collaboration with an artist that they work with, you know?
Oh, okay.
And even within that, I'm just learning how to like communicate every little detail of what we do so that it's like an amicable agreement. And yeah, it's like I'm it's like revealing itself how complicated of a process I have going on here. Like how much is just in my head and I don't have written down on paper or like clearly explained.
Yeah, I completely understand. This is the process of potential calcification that comes with employing people, but also ensuring clients that there won't be mistakes. In other words, mitigating risk for a client. And
Totally.
so
Yeah.
you suddenly find yourself in this very dangerous position where you could kind of start assembly lining things, or you could, in a very professional sense, just establish order and then leave those creative areas, those looser areas for the creative stuff. In other words, accounting shouldn't be creative. But,
right.
Like
surely, yeah.
Screen printing is it's almost a science. And it's part of how I struggle with screen printing, because I've been doing pretty crazy stuff in this basement. We're just like building screens and printing on wood and then kerf cutting the inside and like bending the wood. I'll send it to you, actually.
Crazy. The hell? Yeah.
Super fun. Like doing stools. So imagine if you did like an all over print and then you just bent that wood around a form.
Sounds super cool.
Yeah, but like then I'm starting to teach people my system, and my system is insane.
Yeah.
It's intimate, right? Like this one time my Astro van, its door broke, like the way the handle.
Yeah.
And this is the way I started to realize, wow, and intimacy occurs with objects when they break a lot more than when they work well, because only I could open the door.
Totally.
It was like this really specific angle, and everyone else was like, I can't even open this car.
My entire system of how I print fabric is that. It's like the whole fucking thing is like that. And then when I have people working for me, I think that's been a huge obstacle. It's just like people being like, oh, this could be done like way more efficiently. And I'm like,
100%.
Cool. Let's go, bro. Let's do it. Like, get it. Can you help me make it more efficient? Cause my brain doesn't work like that. Can you just like make it more efficient? And then I'll like listen to you and we'll just do it your way. But
yeah. And like, you might lose something there, but that's the trade-off, like it's only trade-offs. There's no,
I guess that's where I was heading. What I was saying earlier was that my goal with the whole project is actually that eventually it's sort of run by other people. We can get wholesale orders. We can, get collaborations with other artists. I can sort of bow out of the production side of things and focus more on all the creative and the communication between like collaborators, and sort of just get more focused on running the company and doing the creative end. Whereas there's like a whole production team behind me. And then I can sort of focus on the things that are in my, that I have a natural disposition for a little bit more, So,
yeah, I understand that. It's funny though, because the pain and the struggle of the process sometimes binds you more intimately to the thing itself. And I wonder if you reach a certain point of efficiency, if you just start daydreaming about being on a beach, not doing any of this shit anymore, and just building this kind of like, cartoonish version of one's company and letting other people run it. And then the whole product declines. It might even sell more. It might even make you more money. But then suddenly you lost the thing you actually like doing. And I'm very aware of that. Like, that is probably what happens when you start extracting out the painful parts. It's like, you know what I mean?
It depends. I guess I would still be right here with the pain. I'd be right next to the pain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like still, you know, I could feel it from like 20 feet away, but maybe not be first in line.
It's tricky, you know. I started to understand why people build companies. Well, some people build companies to sell them, right? Like from day one, they're like, all right, in 5 to 10 years, I'm selling this thing. And there's no intimacy there. There's no humanity. It's just like, how do we build an efficiency model? And that's cool. That's what business people do. But what we're trying to do here are, I would say, are brands of innovation. And you can't really step away from that because you are the heart and soul of the thing. And then if you try to hand it off to someone else, it looks completely different because the processes, you know.
It's interesting because I feel like within the realm of like art world association to a clothing production company or to anything that's like in fashion, let's say, you're really like relying on this thing of legend, you know, where
what do you mean by legend?
Well, I guess how I picture it is like the more this entity, which is Time Change Generator, like works with different artists, associates with different artists, and myself being whatever whatever the fuck I am, you know, like it's associated with that, and that kind of thing doesn't really wash off. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't really go away. It's like, I'm trying to think of an example. I think the best example I can think of is like Ruka. I'm not, you know, Ruka is a pretty sick brand in a lot of ways. They've like done these collaborations with other artists that are legendary artists. And that's like the only reason I really know about Ruka. I don't know. It's like, I have like a...
Right, but Ruka is Ruka and Time Change Generator, which I think is the first time we said that phrase, is mostly you.
Right.
How I understand it, but also because you were saying earlier that that's kind of what people are wanting from it, is you. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what I'm saying is that this thing of legend, like over time, if it's associated with different things that have like historical relevance and cultural impact, it just becomes like, it represents those things and you can't really wash that off. So it's like, even if it's run by somebody else and it's sort of like doesn't have all that pain coming from me going into it, it's still associated with that pain. And it's still like has this thing of legend to it, that it's like, you know, some kid got inspired when they were really young by the thing they saw from Time Change Generator, maybe. And then like 15, 20 years later, if it's still going, literally just if it's still going, if you're still doing it, just no matter what the case is, if you're still doing it, that person wants to rep you. I mean, maybe they've grown out of it, maybe this and that and the other, but...
Well, there's something tragic about what you're saying, because legend is a past-oriented word, you know, where it's like, it implies that, at least in my eyes, that the peak was the past, but it persists in a kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like,
I do. I guess
there's artists, there's even artists, solitary artists in my head who I feel fit this formula. I will refrain from saying their names. But you see the moment they start, one, being interested in actual life, maybe they have a family, two, gain financial stability, but three, reach a commodifiable brand point where they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking pump this shit out, enjoy the other aspects of life, and like, you know, have a hobby that was once connected to a passion. And I don't fault them, but I can sense it and I can say, well, I don't care about this art. You know, I need more. I need the suffering and the like sacrifice in a perverse way, almost like in a sadistic way of like,
right.
Like show me a painting that crushed your whole life. And it's probably great.
Yeah.
And not a casual hobby, you know, but a real thing.
I think for me, that's where that energy goes into me just making art. And I think that's potentially, you know, it's all wrapped up in a package that I have this clothing company, this other project, but I guess I'm just envisioning like continuing onward as an artist, and Time Change Generator is supported by me continuing to do that, but it doesn't have to be like fully my art, you know. The only thing I'm doing is running Time Change Generator. So I'd like to have more time to do other things, I guess. Is what I'm saying. And I feel like that would only, me doing other things would only support this other entity that I've built. You know, it'd be like,
I completely understand.
Yeah, I also feel really strongly that within the realm that, you know, within art, design, clothing making, running a gallery, whatever, fucking anything in the creative pursuit is literally just, most people give up. Like 90% of people give up or like lessen their efforts, kind of move away from this life, you know? And it's like people that's really just the ones that succeed are the ones that keep going. Even if they were unsuccessful for a really long time, it's like, I mean, I'm sure there's like a lot of tragic examples of this not being true, but
there's probably people who are just bad at art and
to shit on
just keep going.
Yeah, not to shit on anyone. I mean, even if you're successful, you also have to define success like for yourself. That's like a huge thing I've been working on. Is how to define success for myself, which is literally, I think, just the ability to chill. Damn, potentially.
That's a crazy definition of success. I never even heard that.
That's my definition of success is like being able to chill at all and not be.
First of all, I don't chill. So by your definition, I don't think I can succeed. But I like that definition.
You don't chill.
I don't think I can. Like I don't resent that anymore. I mean, I was just built a certain way, and it's got upside and downside for sure. But no.
Well, it depends. What I mean, you got to define chill then. But I mean,
first of all, this is your definition of success. I just like it because it's not what I was expecting. Mm-hmm. But the problem with defining your own metric for success is we're squarely individuals. So there is utility to at least allowing the opinion of your most respected peers to inform your definition of success, you know, where there's a collective and trusted definition out there outside of you. Yeah. So that when you falter or you legitimately don't succeed, you can't just turn around and go like, well, you know, by my definition, this piece of shit painting was great and I don't want to hear it. Well, there's a good use to like just having 5 people you respect and just going like, is this actually a piece of shit? And and if they think that, if they all think it is, that's the problem, I think.
Yeah.
But you're just trying to chill. I mean,
take time where you're not working.
Yeah, you're talking about play.
Yeah, like play. I mean,
that's cool because I get it. Like I don't have a ton of time to play right now. I try to find my moments within my work, and But in terms of pure play, my 30s have not been about that.
I don't think 30s are about that.
They're not, especially when people have kids. Like, that's not what the fuck's going on. Like,
yeah, I think it's like you're in your 30s. You've like figured out. This is what it's supposed to be like. You figured out what your life, like what you're going to work your ass off doing. And then you spend your 30s working your ass off doing. And then
it's a sacrifice phase, I would say.
Yeah.
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 It's a gathering of the wheat or something. It's like it's not.
Well, it feels like all of my 20s, like I was having a lot of trouble being taken seriously by the people I wanted to be taken seriously by. And then like within the last, I'm 32. So the last couple of years, I mean, it was like, I almost feel like this was an immediate thing. It's like, as soon as I was in my 30s, I was able to like approach, maybe it's internal. Maybe I'm just projecting this. Maybe it's like, I felt comfortable, but it's just like professionally, you're able to get more opportunities the older you get because you actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Kind of simply that way.
Do you think that, because we're got a lot of people calling in asking this question, but are you a hippie?
Am I a hippie?
Yeah.
I think that like the way that people define hippie and like the things that actually make hippies, it's like I'm really not a fucking hippie, but like I don't know. I grew up, I guess when I got into Grateful Dead when I was like really, really young. Really? I was like kind of liked it. Didn't really know enough. I was more swept away by like punk, new metal, rap. It's kind of more in that realm, but Grateful Dead always sort of, I think I first heard like, what was the record that my aunts had? I forget.
I got nothing.
You got nothing. But basically I heard Grateful Dead for the first time when I was a really little kid. I remember buying a Grateful Dead sticker, putting it on my skateboard when I was like 10 or 11, maybe younger. But, and then through high school, middle school, high school, I got super, super into that realm, like jammy shit, fish, garbage shit. And it just got really
just complete disrespect.
I'm just not down anymore. I really, I went and saw Fish actually last summer.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to go sell clothing in the parking lot. And
did you?
And I wanted to do nitrous because it's fun. But
noble goals,
So I did those things. But Grateful Dead, the thing is about the Grateful Dead and being a hippie for me is that I was going through a lot of crazy shit in my life, like throughout high school. It was just like me and my dad. My mom had a brain aneurysm when I was 15 and she was disabled and she was like in and out of the hospital and she was at home from time to time. And it was like taking care of her. And, I was just like doing a lot of psychedelics and different drugs and just kind of got into that whole world, of like all that shit. Cause that's just where I grew up. It was like what suburban Jewish kids were into was Grateful Dead and Fish. But I got into painting graffiti when I was like, I think I started painting graffiti when I was 11, actually. And I grew up right off of the public transit, the train. The train went right up to my house growing up. So as soon as we were old enough to like understand that was the case, we like were buying train. We were getting an all day pass for the train and then riding around Cleveland and like getting plugged into this like graffiti world. So that was kind of my saving grace from the like from being a total hippie, I would say, is that I got into graffiti when I was really young, and
well, you're clearly more complex than a traditional hippie. You know, like you said, you were into like, you know, very different forms of music than just like the lightness of a hippie thing. But
I think our whole generation is like that. I think really at the end of the day, I've always been too neurotic. Like I've never been laid back enough to truly be a fucking hippie.
Well, you know, yeah, no, I get you.
Like I think every good friend of mine that was a total hippie, I think at a certain point, I just got too irritable. Whereas like, just like this is taking too long, dude. We can't hang out today. I thought we were going to go to the beach today. Like, it's already 4:00. Why haven't we left yet?
Yeah, you like that structure.
I need that structure.
What about like drugs? Are they still important for you? Obviously, you sell clothing for nitrous oxide in parking lots.
No, they're not. They're not. I really don't. You know, it's like I think I'm too neurotic for psychedelics regularly. You know,
what are you neurotic like on the daily, you mean? Like you just kind of concerned?
Too high of anxiety. And I think since I've moved home and started Time Change Generator, I haven't really had enough like just laid back living to or I don't know if that's the right way to define it. I just have responsibilities, so, and I also really don't. I think at a certain point in my like mid 20s, I like stopped smoking pot, or I think I was 23 when I stopped smoking weed because I had a full breakdown, just like way too high. I was living in Oakland. My car kept getting broken into. My house got broken into.
Damn.
They stole everything of importance to me, like everything of value, of like high value and of, you know, not of importance. Just they broke in and they stole everything of value. And that was like the second year I lived in Oakland. And after that point, I didn't really have anything nice, you know. I didn't have, you know, I had like a old like PC laptop that was my brother's old computer that like was totally fucked. I rode like whatever shitty bike that I could get for like $50.
Yeah, that's how I lived in Philly for a while. It's just like it's a weird form of defensiveness where like, well, one, I kind of looked like I was homeless just so I was unrobbable.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah,
totally.
you buy $50 bikes that barely work instead of buying like, you know, a $200 one and that goes 4 times longer at least. Totally. But yeah, you're on this defensive kick. I understand. Yeah, I get what you mean about, you know, when you value being productive, neuroses typically comes with it. And if you, you know, like, as long as you don't produce compulsively with this kind of blindness, I think it's a good thing where, at least for me personally, I feel indebted if I'm given a set of skills and talents. Like I owe whatever gave that to me to put it back out tenfold. You know, it's like, chill. I don't like that idea of wasted talent. Like there's this romanticism about that. Like I could be so good at writing songs or paintings, but I'm just going to waste away. And
I think
fuck that.
Yeah, I think that I have a hard time with the idea of talent even existing.
All right, let's get into it.
Do you? Yeah, I mean,
flushing toilets on me like this.
My bad. You can edit that. I hope you can edit that.
I'm not going. I don't edit anything out.
Yeah, I think that the thing about talent is that
he's zipping up on me now.
God,
it's catching everything.
It's all in there. Man's got it. I got it.
No. I mean, the reason I'm going to push back immediately is like, look, there's people who are really good at certain things straight up from the beginning, and that's just what we call talent. You know, like Do they succeed? Almost never, because they don't have what you spoke to earlier, which is like a drive to prove something, or a drive in general, because they already got it.
Yeah, I would argue that it's not that talent doesn't exist, it's that the word is wildly misused and assigned incorrectly. I think that people will think that they don't have talent, or think they have too much talent, or whatever the fuck it is. But at the end of the day, it's actually just like persistence, and not to sound all like bootstrappy about it.
Oh, go ahead.
Because, well, I just don't really, I mean, I really don't fuck with that, but I do think that, I really don't fuck with that, but I do feel that, I don't know, because I know a lot of people who've come from enormous amounts of privilege and are enormously talented, but they just don't have the self-discipline or the drive to like get what they need out of that, you know? And then it's like everything else in your life is like, oh, fuck this, fuck that. It's like, nah, man, just, if you don't want to work a job that sucks and you hate working that job, like, I hear you, like, fuck, that sucks. But we all had to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, usually the word talent is used by people who don't have any, that want to dismiss people who they think just magically became good at something. So like, we watch athletes like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, and we literally, like, I even fall prey to this, and I've watched sports like my whole life, but we think of them as just simply being good, not the fact that they've dedicated their whole life and continue to do so.
Well, and we're lucky enough to have certain people around them that were like pushing them to get better and to focus, and then like this support system that maybe, maybe that's not applicable all the time, but there's always some outside factor that you're lucky to have in your life. And I think, for me, I always had a natural disposition for like drawing, painting, making, and always felt more comfortable by myself making it. And so there's that. But I also had like, I also was really lucky in the school system I was in when I was a kid. They had this like extra, or this, what was it? It was like in a, what do you call it? Vocational program. Basically, I ended up I basically wouldn't have graduated from high school if we didn't have this program for visual art that sent me to another school for half the day throughout my junior and senior year. Like, I would not have graduated from school if I didn't have that. And also like a family that was knowledgeable about the possibility of being an artist, like I had a family that actually thought I could be an art, knew that was an option for me. So
it's pretty obvious to me that it's always a middle thing, right? Like there's obviously the individual and their environment, but what I would say is it's also seems pretty obvious that a person with a shitty disposition and mentality about life, no matter what they're given, will never manifest something worthwhile. But there are these really impressive people who are given bad environments who, because they have the proper disposition, overcome that. So there is, like, to me at least, a kind of skewing towards one's individual will and responsibility, in the sense of like, you kind of make a million little decisions every day. And I think we forget that sometimes. Like, it's pretty shocking to be committed to just like making clothing for a decade. Like, that's a very weird thing. Because you could be dedicated to playing video games. You could be dedicated to drinking alcohol. You could be like, it's a sacred, you have to have a sacred disposition towards what you're doing, because there's almost always going to be points in the material world where it's not worth it, whether that's money or whatever. Like, that's what it separates the artists I know. I think it's like, whether they frame it in spiritual terms or not, they have a very weird solitary focus on that thing they want, and they'll ruin their lives for it,
Yeah, I fully agree with that concept.
And I don't even know if you can make that. You can't put that on. I don't think you can't tell a kid like that comes down to what you're willing to sacrifice at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think you can teach that.
No, you really can't. And I think also it really just has to do with like, what do you want to spend your time doing?
Your precious life force that you'll just die.
Well, yeah, like you just said, like you make a million little decisions a day. And I think for me at least, I know that what I really want to be doing is just sitting here painting, like in my studio, make a little food, put on some music, listen to people talk, or listen to an interview, or like listen to a book on tape, or like sit here with another person and just make art together and talk. Or I know exactly what I want to do with my time. So there's no confusion about that. I think that if you have trouble deciding like what you want to spend your time doing in general, like across the board, like, maybe
it sucks. I feel bad for people like that.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. I mean, I feel, I that is hard. I feel really, really strongly about how I want to spend my time. I think it's also, it's probably been an obstacle as well with relationships in my life, is that like, it's hard for me to even want to do anything else because I know exactly what the fuck I want to do. And there's a misery in that too, where it's like, oh, you just, spend all your time fucking making art alone. Eventually you just end up alone making art. So,
well, like, whether it's a blessing or a curse is debatable, but if you look at the lives of people who don't have a gift that lets them soothe themselves through painful moments in life, I think it's obviously a blessing. Like, we may not be able to chill in some sense, but like, look at the alternative. You just consume, and I don't know, you experience small pleasures, and you go to work doing God knows what.
I mean, people that are happy against all those odds are the most amazing people in the world.
Oh yeah, they're very, very grounding spirits, I would say, when you meet that kind of person.
Yeah, somebody that's like content in life, and you're like, fuck, dude, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do the thing that you do and be content. Like, I'd be very upset. I'm just like, fuck, that's really incredible.
I think they're less concerned with a certain type of like ego residue or something.
Right. That brings us back to just like surrounding yourself with like artists.
Oh, it's horrible. I don't do that. I forsook that a long time ago. I just don't. I love people who aren't artists so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of other shit out there. But we're pretty cool too, man.
Well, look, I'm not saying that isn't true, but I often use a metaphor of like, look, if you got like a full meat and potatoes dinner going on here, you need a little bit of salt and pepper, but you don't need it like artists are salt and pepper. I don't need the full meat to be them in my life. I need everything else, just like there's this assumption that can start to occur in the little art cliques that like we're the most interesting people, but then you meet truly interesting, strange, what I would say are normal people, and they're really on one because they're not putting it on for some like brand notion. They're just like, they're trying to do the opposite. They're literally actually strange, and they're trying to get through life with people thinking they're normal.
Oh man, that has been the absolute perk, and I'm sure you feel similarly. That's been the absolute beauty of like being in an underdog town, not being in New York or LA or the Bay or whatever the fuck. Like, being in a place where your everyday weirdo is like actually very fucking weird, like very very weird, and like I don't know. I go there's just a lot of people I have to interact with on a very regular basis that like are, we're just so totally different. And it's like, I'm such an alien walking into their life. It's like when they're trying to wrap their head around what it is I do, there's no way to explain it. So it makes me realize that how lucky I am to do what I do. Basically.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's cool. This is a post-industrial city, and it has all these leftovers of manufacturing, and it also still has manufacturing, but it's like, I just find it really rewarding, like plugging in to what there is available to me locally, as far as like, sourcing material or seeing like what kind of production I could do locally, and kind of just like walking into random businesses and talking to people who are, I don't know, there's a canvas goods manufacturing facility like a couple miles away from my studio that I've gone into a couple times, where they make like huge canvas goods, like a big dust collection bag that goes on a some kind of machine in a factory somewhere, or like the some kind of seat cover, just like there's just like all sorts of shit here that's really interesting, and like most people don't even know it exists.
No, I feel the same way about the cornucopia that is New Jersey, in terms of just like really idiosyncratic producers of strange specific objects. But you got a joke for me?
A joke?
Yeah, tell me one joke.
One joke. Dude, I don't have a joke?
Well, you got to work on that. How do you not have a joke?
You mean like an actual joke? Like something with...
I like to end on a joke.
Oh, you want to end?
Well, look, I think it's fair. We've spoken for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
How long can people listen?
I have no idea.
Without a joke?
I'm trying to think of like what kind of like actual joke I know that's not from Sopranos or...
Well, then I will just simply say you got to get more jokes in your life.
You're like, dog, you really need to lighten up. You're not fun. What's going on? Yeah, I don't have a joke for you, Michael. But
just please try to collect some jokes.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
It's kind of sad. I feel like they're going extinct, like...
Why don't you tell me a joke? Because you're saying that like you have a bank of like actual jokes. You probably...
Nah, but I don't... I asked the guest for a joke. I am collecting jokes. This is a thing I'm doing right now.
Trying to get your joke game up.
I am. I love jokes. They're like a good time. But I accept that you don't have any jokes.
If you had asked me, like, if you had told me, like, and I'm gonna need a joke.
No, I don't do that. See, that's the beauty of it. I want to see what comes out. I've had some good ones. If you listen to the other episodes, you'll see them.
I listened to M. Kettner for a sec because I really, really like their work. Really sick.
So why'd you listen to it for a sec?
Oh, no. I listened to the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
But then, I had to, like, come back to it because for some reason the format kept fucking up.
Oh, yeah, because it's through Google Drive.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you got to download it. It's annoying.
Yes. But instead of a joke, maybe I'll just fully explain myself real quick.
Okay.
I have a textile screen printing facility in Cleveland, Ohio, where I print repeat patterns on fabric, and we make clothing out of it locally. And
website? What's the website?
Website is timechangegenerator.com. And same on Instagram at timechangegenerator.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure knowing you, Michael.
Sounds like I'm gonna die or something.
I hope not. I hope you hang in there, bud.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm not gonna die. Yeah, good talking to you.
Dude, we didn't even talk about... It's interesting. We didn't even talk about kind of like this thing that happened where basically I was living in Oakland,
mm-hmm.
and then we decided, me and my ex, but still somebody I care about, Linnea, we left Oakland to move all of our shit to Cleveland. We moved all of our stuff to Cleveland, and we had this vision that, my vision was I was going to build Time Change Generator. I didn't have the name yet, but I was going to build this studio to print repeat patterns on fabric. And then, so we moved all our stuff here, and then we were working for another artist, my friend Dave, who goes by the name Momo. It's like a wall painter.
Yeah.
And so we traveled around with Momo and painted murals for like a solid year. He just kept flying us different places. And in the downtime where we didn't have work, I think we went and did a residency in Mexico. We were just kind of like having this really fun year without really like renting anywhere. And then we were in Oakland doing a mural at Facebook, and Canon Dill had this thing going called Coco Literary Salon.
Yeah, lasted like one day.
That guy has the ability to like make the most amazing thing at like the drop of a hat. Mm-hmm. Like he could do, I feel like he could literally do anything he wants, that guy, and just be a total success at it. But he had built this whole thing that was going to be like a quarterly.
Yeah, it was with what the fuck is that guy's name with the weird name?
Boole, I think.
Jackie Boole,
who's like a really great photographer. Yeah,
Jackie Boole.
He was going to have a show, like an event that was a drop for it, and he was going to have every artist that did an interview was going to have like, they were going to make a pair of pants, and it was like,
yeah.
Canon went and bleached all these black jeans. They had to be black jeans, and then he would bleach them until they were white, so they were a specific kind of off-white. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, we're going to do black, red, and blue Sharpie drawings on these jeans. And so I'm going to have all these different artists make a pair of jeans. You can only use these 3 colors, and then they're going to be at the show. And so I made the pair of pants, and then he totally bailed on it. He was like, we're not doing that. We're not even going to put out he's just like, I quit Coco Literary Salon. And then you, right?
Oh, yeah. Harpy.
The same week, you were like, hey, we're doing a one-off clothing show at Harpy. And I sent you the jeans, and you sold them. And I got a whole bunch of followers and people like commissioning me to make more pairs of them. And that carried me through like the beginning of it right there took me from the first pair until like I had built my printing table and totally built my whole studio. It was like,
oh wow, that is an interesting connection.
I was still drawing the pants, and like it went to the, I started at one price, like, $300 a pair, which was insane.
Yeah.
Just so cheap for how much work I was doing. And then it got to the point where I was making outfits for Post Malone. I sold drawings to Nike and Burton, and like, it got like way out of hand. I was like, well, this like totally took over my life.
Yeah. I did not realize that was kind of the seed of the whole thing.
That was, well, basically I was going to build the studio, and then that whole thing took me into a position where I had actual demand for clothing and was able to sell clothing, because it was like the cheapest thing you could get from me was like $200-$300.
Right.
I was like, I need to start a brand, and I started selling hoodies and t-shirts, and it just like spiraled out into, or it didn't spiral. It turned into what it is now. So yeah, that was kind of the seed of all that shit.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, dude.
Nice talking to you.
Good night.
Later.
And the beat goes on. Music by Dory Bavarsky and Mingja Chen. Next up, we have Jason Rusnock.